All right, OB, let's get into it today. Last night, Braden Montgomery makes his Major League Baseball debut. An incredible life moment for one of the all-time great Aggies, even though he only spent a year at Texas A&M. He comes up, he has an RBI single in his second at bat, and then comes up in extra innings with the White Sox down 5-4 and hits an opposite field home run to walk off and win the game for the White Sox. You're seeing it if you're watching live with us here on YouTube or on TexAgs.com/live. You're seeing it now in picture. It was retro 80s, 90s night, so you get the old school graphics on the overlay of Braden rounding the bases. And only the 5th time in Major League Baseball's entire existence that a walk-off homer was hit by a man making his Major League Baseball debut. Braden Montgomery will forever now be etched in baseball history as one of those 5 guys to ever have done that. I can't even imagine what that must have felt like for him, but also his family.
Oh, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for Gretchen, his mom. You know, she's always active on Twitter, and she was again, and she's a lovely lady. So I'm happy for everything. But I got to admit, my first thought when I saw that was, damn, it only happens to A&M. If that guy doesn't break his ankle, you probably have a national championship here. I'm just going to say it, right? I mean, you take that bad out of A&M's lineup, and they still came a run from winning the college.
They lost by a run in the Game 3 of the College World Series Finals.
That I have to admit, I'm happy for them, but that's what came to my mind. Call me selfish, okay? I don't care. That's where my mind went.
It's interesting that that word selfish was also prominent around the end of that baseball season. If you'll remember, a TexAgs employee got called selfish.
What about the SEC, 10 commandments or whatever? What about the Big Ten, 10 commandments that they live by? These are the rules that we live by. Hey, you got 5 years for 4. You can only transfer 1 time within the SEC. There is a salary cap for everything, the collectives, NIL, et cetera. We're putting a salary cap on all of that. I think that's where we're going to end up heading, that this conference does it this way. The Big Ten does it this way. The SEC does it this way. ACC does it this way. And I think that's how we're going to have to do it in a sense, because to come to an agreement for 130 FBS teams, I think is going to be too much. I think it's going to be, down in Sun Belt Conference, we want to be able to do this. It's like, well, no, the SEC is going to do this. We can't live on the same level playing, if you will. So I knew you would ask me about this Brendan Sorsby thing. So I've been thinking about what I would say. And I feel like this, because everybody is wrong in some sense in all of this. How it impacts, and also one thing you asked me was how about the NFL? I was going to ask one of our scouts about it, and then I was like, you know what? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't ask about this, but I have a feeling that there will be, because as you would say, gambling addiction. Okay, how has addiction been treated amongst the scout world? How have mental health issues been addressed? Because I think that's kind of where we are with Brendan Sorsby. It's addiction. Maybe there's a mental health factor in there, all that kind of stuff. The NFL hasn't shied away from it, and I think they've gotten better in-house, especially the Texans, in how they handle mental health issues, how they handle addictions, how they handle those things. Now, I think they've become better.
Talking to Mary Rominger, a sports anchor and reporter at KSAT 12 in San Antonio. Mary, so let's go through. Victor Wembanyama gets a lot of the headlines, and a lot of the talking points are deservedly directed toward him. But it feels like to me, if all of these games are going to be as competitive as they've been, then the Spurs are going to need similar contributions to what they got out of Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox. The party around Victor Wembanyama has got to continue to play well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? They have, they can afford Dylan Harper not shooting the ball that great, and he still finishes in double figures off the bench. They can afford, a less productive Stephon Castle game, as long as they're not turning the ball over, which, when De'Aaron Fox is somewhat healthy and he's on the court, able to facilitate the offense, they're pretty good at keeping, possession But a lot of it comes down to too, which, you hate to blame, any loss on one specific thing. But those first two losses, I'm sure you remember the turnovers in crunch time. Wembanyama in game one dribbled the ball off his foot when guarded by Cat. Game two, the infamous, or maybe better terminology, the turnover heard around the world when Wembanyama passed to Stephon Castle's back in transition in the tied game. There's moments like that too, where yes, Wembanyama needs support. You just can't afford to make mistakes, is my point. So the Spurs have done well, but they've kind of shot themselves in the foot in critical moments. And we didn't see that in game three. And to me, I hate to simplify it because this is not a simple series, but it really has, from my perspective, come down to just not making mistakes in crunch time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We get to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell you, you talk about that O-line set. Those guys in the trenches, what they're doing, both sides of the ball. You've got not only Cushing and Tony Girardetti and Coach E, who everybody loves, but you've got those guys, Coach Wiz, Coach Mackey, Coach Watson. I know I'm leaving somebody else out, but anyway, those guys are running drills. They are coaching those guys up, and everybody's moving all at the same time. And let me tell you, these high-level guys that are coming in, they're taking official visits. They went to spring practice or they're at camp participating. They see the intensity. They see the level of scrutiny and everything that they're
Attention
getting
to detail,
between
yep.
rep to rep, and they love it. And that's what you really want. That you want those guys that are hungry to learn and take that in, and they want every rep. And that's what you're able to see when those guys are talking about that. They're eating that up, and that's a huge reason why I think we love what's coming together in this class, and it's what we're seeing out of the type of player they're getting on campus. Right?
And it's something, if you're a parent, you're wanting return on investment, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I'm paying
Yeah.
for this camp.
Yeah.
I want something out of it, whether my kid's the best player there or the worst player there. I'm paying for an experience and for my kid to get better. And they're coaching them 1 to 100 all the same. And I agree with your point that these camps have become really important for the eval of the player, but also the player eval of the program.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's equally important nowadays in recruiting, because these coaches can get these kids on campus and press on them. And maybe they don't know how they fully are. They like them as a player. They check all the physical boxes that they need to compete in the SEC. But how much does he love football?
Oh, yeah.
How much does he love being coached? How much can I press on him, and how does he respond to being coached hard? These are all elements of the eval that the average fan doesn't know. So if A&M goes on a kid and they're all in, and they're, they offer him, they brought him in on a visit, and then all of a sudden something starts changing, that should be sometimes a light bulb should go off to a lot of people going, all right, maybe it's something that they dug deeper into the eval and they found something that maybe doesn't jive with the culture they're trying to build.